We are back with another episode today. Guys, first, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Yeah. Check out the website, Eigenbros.com. Check out Eigenbros on Twitter, Eigenbros Instagram, Eigenbros2 on TikTok. And then thank you to the patrons. Once again, guys, we appreciate your support. And if you want to become a Patreon, check us out at patreon.com/Eigenbros. Mm-hmm. Let's get into it.
Yeah, this week we're talking about why you should do physics.
Yeah.
And then why you shouldn't do physics.
Oh, shoot.
Dun, dun, dun.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah. Why you should do physics.
Except I guess we're both good cop in the beginning and both bad cop in the end.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
We're teaming up. Yeah, it's a 1-2
good
punch.
cops, bad cops.
Yeah, it's a 1-2 punch, really. We just fatigue you with the good stuff and then...
I see.
Then really suck it to you at the end.
So we put all the positivity in the front end. I like that, though.
You're supposed to feel good. Hopefully this is, if you're already in physics, you're like, okay, all right, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But
if you're not,
then...
Well, hopefully if you're not, this will give people more encouragement to do it or to be like, maybe
Yeah, maybe this is not what
have a change of heart.
Maybe this is not what I think it is. Because there's a lot of people that, I guess, perceive physics to be a certain thing.
Yeah, let me ask you this one. Did you ever have, what were your kind of, what did I think it was? What were your childish visions of of what a physicist was when you knew nothing about it, like absolutely nothing?
Yeah, I think we all have this disillusionment phase. But I thought physics was about...
No, but I'm saying, what did you imagine it to be like?
I imagined it to be...
What did you imagine being a physicist was?
I imagined it to be more exciting than it is.
Okay. In what sense?
More exciting in the sense that, like, I thought I would have known... There would have been a lot more philosophical questions involved. But they're definitely...
So you're imagining, like, sitting around in a toga, like, scratching your beard.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot less of those discussions and more, rightfully so, more oriented towards things that can be executed, like testable hypotheses, instead of like the
I see. So it's more empirical than you had expected.
Than my sort of teenage self thought, yes.
I see. Okay, yeah. I think I probably had a similar vision.
Yeah.
Like just thinking and just like coming up with a theory of everything.
Yeah, or a theory.
Like just staring off into space and just,
Or just like thinking like, oh, I'm going to be able to solve a problem. All it's going to take is like a little bit of reading.
Right.
And voila. But it's like,
right.
There's like months of research that go through testing a hypothesis and then refining the hypothesis and sometimes even throwing the hypothesis out. Like just... You have to totally think about a new way to approach the problem. So, yeah.
I remember even having the thought where I was going to be able to supersede math because my thinking powers would just be so good that I wouldn't even need math. I'm going to be a physicist who doesn't need math.
Yeah.
Which is the most hilarious thought you can have once you actually enter into physics, because you realize that your real human brain is feeble compared to the power of mathematics.
Yeah, the language is not invented. Like English does not work.
No.
Yeah.
Your intuition does not work in the realm of where we're at in physics.
Yeah.
It's beyond your wildest imagination. You can't think your way into solving problems.
Yeah.
You maybe be able to do that in classical mechanics somewhat.
Yeah.
And even then, it's really a struggle at the ends of classical mechanics too, right?
Yeah, because you can make conceptions. You can conceptualize things a lot easier by working through your own thoughts and then thinking about things. You can generalize stuff. And a lot of physicists have done this throughout the past maybe 200 years, 300 years of physics, I guess, as we know it.
Sure.
So yeah, what about you? What did you feel like? I guess in more detail. Like, did you have sort of the same? I guess exactly the same outlook, or would you say it was more nuanced than that?
I'd say it was kind of similar.
Yeah.
I kind of imagine I don't know. I don't think you've seen Rick and Morty, have you?
No.
Okay. Well, there's a scene where there's like.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's the Council of Ricks.
Yeah.
And they're like all the versions of Rick Sanchez. He's like a super genius. and they all have these goofy haircuts, and they sit on a council. That's how I kind of envision physicists. Like they're just like these ultimate minds who just sat and thought about, sat and thought about like how the universe works, and they would just uncover these mysteries just by sheer thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I pictured.
And then getting to it, you realize it's a lot more human than...
Yeah, and it's a lot more trial and error. You know, like you're literally like, I like how you use the term. Sometimes when we would do quantum, you're like, I'm trying to become a quantum mechanic.
Yeah,
it's like you're almost like a technician of sorts, except you use your pen and paper for the technician stuff. I mean, if we're talking theory, right?
Yeah.
Of course, experimentalists, then we really do become mechanics.
Yeah.
You know, at some level, but yeah, you literally are doing a lot of trial and error. The math isn't always obvious. Sometimes you're like, you know, I'm just going to try some shit, and then we're going to see what happens. And if the answer comes out, it's like the math really gives you all the answers.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know where it's going to go. You come up with the structure of the math or the equation. You dive in and see if an answer comes out that makes sense. Check it against other stuff. And that's what it is. So it's like trial and error, you know, brute force sometimes. You know, sometimes you're going to use programs, calculators, you know, tools, all kinds of stuff. So it's not just, you know, the power of the mind alone.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think should people do physics? Like, why do you think, what do physicists, or what does a student get out of doing physics?
So for one, I guess I would definitely say if we want a really general reason, I think scientifically literate is a huge asset in everyday life. Like I think if you're scientifically literate, you're going to be in a very good spot compared to a lot of people, because scientific literacy translates to almost everything, right? Mm-hmm. If you know how to think like a scientist, you can solve so many problems from first principles, and just being able to derive things in a very logical way that matches how the real world works. It's a major advantage, right? I feel like these days I feel confident almost solving any problem. Mm-hmm. Like someone can tell me a problem and I can feel like, I could probably solve that, or at least I have the know-how to know if I can or can't solve it.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of tools that a lot of people don't have. And that came from my physics literacy. So I think one of the big takeaways from learning physics is just becoming scientifically literate. You know, if you want to become a politician, for example, you know, that has nothing to do with physics, but like if you're scientifically literate, you'll know what experts to listen to when they're talking about climate change, for instance. Mm-hmm. Looking at you, Republicans. You know, and other things like this, you know. So it translates everywhere.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think I would agree. It's scientific literacy is one of the advantages, because it does help you, you know, sort through disinformation as well. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, like this 5G stuff.
Right.
Which
the whole conspiracy where you're going to get, is it, do they say 5G gives you coronavirus? Oh, I forget what it is.
5G gives you coronavirus?
Is that too crazy, or is it just like gives you...
Look, maybe that's what it is. Let's just say that. Let's just go with it. That's what it is. That's what they think.
5G gives you coronavirus.
5G gets you sick, which is why,
I know. I know some people unironically believe that who are in high positions. Mm-hmm. We talked about the Uline lady, Liz Uline.
Yeah, and our Patreon. That was.
Okay.
Quite a while back. But exactly. There are people who actually believe this stuff, but it's because of the lack of scientific literacy. People don't understand radiation. There's still people that don't trust microwaves.
Right, and I get it. It's like if you don't understand it, why should you, right?
Yeah.
You know that there are electromagnetic waves that do give you radiation. Mm-hmm. And then you see things like, you know, what's the disaster in...
Fukushima?
No, the big one in Russia. Chernobyl.
Chernobyl,
yeah. When you see shit like Chernobyl, and then the government just doesn't say anything to its people for days on end, right? Yeah. It's like, how can you trust the experts, right? When they're too... we can believe that.
Yeah.
When they're too, you know, when they're too...
P word.
When they're too soft to admit, you know, admit when something goes wrong, right?
Yeah, but that's putting politics over people in some way.
Yeah.
Which is more of a problem, not necessarily with
But
science.
that's the thing
but
of
that's
where
how
you
it's
can say,
taken
like,
in.
how can I trust scientists, right? Because you see it in the same way as, like, that's how people think that politics and science are on equal footing in terms
Yeah.
of rigor
Yeah.
when they're not.
Yeah.
It's like, because politicians will do that shit all day long and get away with it.
Yeah.
But people don't have a good look into science, so they think it's the same kind of
Yeah.
level of rigor, which
Yeah,
is
man.
not scientific. Scientific rigor is way more than political rigor.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I mean, and you can sort through these things like you're saying by first principles, and I see the word first principles thrown around a lot, and if you're an undergraduate or somebody that's like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like,
yeah, true. We should define it.
yeah, so like, for me, I would define first principles as something that's you take what's called axioms, like you take these things as truths, as I hate the word self-evident, but things that you
A priori, maybe.
maybe yeah, like you sort of take as a truth, obviously that's falsifiable, but nevertheless it's a firm common ground that you all stand on in terms of.
Well, I think the lowest axioms would not be would be unfalsifiable by definition.
Well, I'm saying like
Because
I guess by definition, but I'm saying like any axiom. I think any axiom could be falsifiable. No.
No,
Or should
because
be-
I think the
should
axioms are the lowest state. And you can't really falsify it if the axiom is something that you just have to agree upon. Like, you have to say, like, at some point, like, we define 1 + 1 = 2 or something like that.
I guess this is
right?
more a mathematical axiom. Yeah.
Yeah, but all
Oh, you're
axioms
saying-
can be broken into logic, I believe, right?
Okay.
So you have to say, you have to accept some things. Like, you have to say, I think, therefore I am, or like, I think, therefore I exist, right? That's not falsifiable. Like, we can't really ever know if we exist or
Yeah.
not. But that's the axiom we're going to go with. And if you have as low fundamental and as little, as fundamental and as few axioms as possible, that's when you can build up your logical framework.
Yeah. So how would you define first principles then? I guess.
So I would agree where you're going on, where you have a few sets of axioms, and then built upon those axioms, you might have a little bit of higher level rules. And then you can.
Well, those things are based on, like, physics is based on a couple of axioms, really.
Yeah.
Conservation of energy and
Conservation momentum.
Yeah.
All the conservation laws, right? Angular
Yeah.
momentum. Force is defined as mass times acceleration.
yeah.
And then with those few things, also the Newton's laws, like objects in motion want to stay in motion.
Yeah.
Equal and opposite reaction, Newton's laws. Like, you could
Those are
build.
all different forms of conservation. That technically can be conservation momentum, I guess. But they're all broken
Okay.
down in conservation laws, right?
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah. I'm just trying to, like, that's what I'm saying is, like, you have the axioms and then you can build, like, equations from those axioms.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think you can probably get those out of the axioms. I haven't actually done it, but but you might be.
I think it is possible.
Okay. Yeah. I just don't want to make
I'm
too
going
much
to
stronger
co-sign
statement.
that for sure. And I think I'm going to say, referencing our classes that we've taken, I think we've done it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, though, you should be able to solve, like, higher order problems with those few tools.
And there have been professors that we've seen in lectures, they try to wow us,
Yeah.
where they really, really, like, you start at, like, postulates of, like, the quantum mechanical postulates, and then you get stat mech, and then you get, like, all these.
Yeah.
You can go into, I don't know, you were telling me there was a professor that showed you guys, like, E&M, and then they showed you how to get quantum electrodynamics from that. Was that you?
No, but I did tell you one of my professors, we started with quantum mechanics to get stat mech.
Yeah.
But
There was a professor that I know that did a lecture on this. I didn't have him, but everybody was just like clap. Everybody stood up at the end. And clapped. But it's possible in physics to do this. Quite a bit. You start from a couple principles or things that you take as.
Yeah, that's, I guess, to keep in theme with the podcast, it's why should you do physics? Like, if you suck at memorizing shit, physics is great. I'm a guy who sucks at memorizing stuff.
Yeah.
So with physics, you can derive so much shit from first principles. Like, if you're a good logicer, a good logician, we'll say, to keep grammatically correct, physics is great because you don't have to memorize anything except for very few rules. Like the conservation rules, if you know that, that's like 90% physics. and then you can derive and extrapolate all the other things based on logic and just going through the math and the rigor. So
you have to remember a few principles along the way, and the principles are usually totem poles for like experimentally verified information. This is not mathematics. Like physics is empirical in the sense that it does check with reality at times. So
ideally all the time.
Yeah. But it does check
String
with
theory for looking
reality,
at
and then you get these principles, right? You get like in Maxwell's equations, like I don't know if you could derive the whatchamacallit, the third one where it's like you get the EMF, the flux rule.
Oh, is the one I was talking to you about.
Exactly. I don't think you could. I don't think I think it's hard to mathematically see a motivation.
Yeah, I think you have to do it experimentally, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
That is my.
And I think Lorentz force as well. But I'm not sure. Maybe you can. I don't want to make a claim unless I know for sure.
From my experience, this is kind of the thing. But please leave a comment if you do know, because that would be so cool if you can actually.
Yeah. So the question is, can you derive Faraday's law mathematically only without having experimental evidence?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool. I would love to see that. But there are certain things in physics that they do use experimental data as like principles.
Ohm's law as well. Ohm's law is not even a real form. Like it's a real formula, but it doesn't fit really once you start to go outside its bounds. It's a very idealized formula.
Exactly, and
it's experimentally derived.
Yeah, and so I agree. You do get this sense of being logical, but also fact checking, right? You have to humble yourself sometimes and not get too grandiose about your,
Well, you'll be humbled plenty if you do physics.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And that's one.
You don't have to humble yourself; it'll do it for you.
Yeah, that's another thing about physics that I do really appreciate. The fact that it is. Most people that do it in their undergrad are humble. Yeah, you get one or two people that have been doing physics for like.
I think usually in the undergrad they're less humble. Because when you're younger, you feel like you know everything.
Yeah.
So they feel like they're hot shots.
Yeah.
When you've gone through it a lot, then you do get humble.
Yeah.
Of course, there's the people who are ahead in undergraduate.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But they're just cocky because they're ahead of everyone else.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if they are around people who know what the fuck they're doing, then they're humbled.
That's very true. Yeah, and that's a good thing. Like you want to make sure that this tells you that there's somebody that's willing to take on evidence and somebody that's willing to budge on their ideas usually.
Yeah.
I would hope so. If you're doing physics,
Yeah, that will be a skill that you would ultimately get. You should once you realize how wrong you are all the time. Like
exactly.
One of the characteristics of physics is like if you're going into it to think that you're going to feel smart, turn away now, because literally physics is signing up to feel dumb 90% of the time. Like you're going to feel like the dumbest person alive all the time because you literally most of your time is spent getting things wrong.
Yeah, it's
only like the 1% of time that you get something right is when you're like, I fucking did it. I can't believe I did it.
You should feel dumb most of your experience as a student because you don't know anything. If you do know, if you feel like you do know stuff, you either are suffering from a well-known law known as Dunning-Kruger. You might want to look up Dunning-Kruger if you
Dunning-Kruger effect. Yeah. There is certainly that.
Yeah. And you will be humbled in the sense about how much work too that you have to put in.
Yeah.
You will have to put in a lot of time and effort, and that is one thing that is not a concession for a lot of teachers. It'll seem like, and I know you threw this word around, it'll seem like hazing, like kind of like a form of academic hazing.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is putting in the time and the quote unquote 10,000 hours essentially.
Yeah.
You're putting in the time to become fluent in doing physics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, I didn't use hazing in that sense. I only use it in terms of like some of the arbitrary stuff.
Exactly.
But it definitely will feel like that in terms of like how much work you're gonna do.
Yeah.
But it's necessary to get your chops up. Like you're gonna have to be actively doing math and actively figuring out how to solve problems, and with physics, at least compared to any major I've been in, and I've been in a shitload of majors.
Oh yeah.
It's been the hardest one I've ever done. Like in terms of workload and
Yeah.
like work-life balance, you're gonna have way less of it than any other major, really.
Yeah.
Undergraduate, I'm not sure about graduate. I think graduate is always hard for everyone, but in undergraduate
Yeah.
for sure, you're not gonna have as much fun as maybe other undergraduates will.
No, not at all. At least in my experience, it's been. I switched from biology to physics, and it was much harder. Like I had to put a lot more time.
Yeah.
Unless you were prepared adequately, you still had a rough time,
Mm-hmm.
but it was still work. It was still very much work. So, you'll learn that. You'll learn the value of just putting in time to understand something, and I would say that kind of closely correlates with teaching yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another. But I guess we're kind of getting off the beaten trail towards like classes again. But I guess just to touch on it, like that's one thing you have to learn, and if you're going into school for physics, especially undergraduate, is like I hear from a lot of students, they're always like, "Oh, the teacher can't teach. Oh, the teacher sucks." Like, I hate to break it to you, but in physics, after a certain point, the teacher's never going to teach you again.
Yeah,
It's like it's now just an exercise of how well you can teach yourself, because it's so deep and there's so many things to learn. It's not like in chemistry or biology where you can just get a sheet of things to learn and just doop and memorize these things. It's like every problem is different, and now you just have to learn how to solve problems. So really, the only technique is to just solve a lot of problems on your own.
So in that sense, like, it'll make you better at teaching yourself these really, really hard concepts. And the one example that I use is Abraham Lincoln, U.S. president. I don't remember which one number.
Yeah.
But
13, I think.
Bro,
Maybe
no
not.
way.
Maybe not. I'm just.
No, he signed the 13th Amendment.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because
Okay.
that's the Free the Slaves one. I think. But maybe I'm wrong.
But he used to read Euclid's Elements and study them. I know it's not physics, but this is
math.
This is math, but he kind of used that as a reference to what he would say to help him build his logic or flex that logical muscle. And I would say that that's kind of one of the benefits of doing physics. It does kind of build that logical muscle up in your mind, and being better at explaining things.
And you will build some of that logic muscle that mathematicians have as well.
That's true.
Of course, it won't be as rigorous, because mathematicians are really concerned with the logical structure, right?
Yeah.
Because they're basically trying to prove and disprove, which is basically like if you've taken philosophy, that's all it is, right? It's formulating things for proof by, induction, deduction, all this stuff. That's basically math, only with symbols.
Yeah.
Physics is more concerned with solving problems, so you can be a little more dirty, fast and loose, but your logical framework is still going to need to be solid. The real distinction between what skill you get with physics versus math is you become better at creating simplified models of complex systems more easily, because you know what variables that you can discount, and you know what variables you'll need to at least give you an answer or an equation that describes a system that's relatively simple. So that's one skill I had to learn when I was doing physics, because I always wanted to look at all the most complex parts of the picture, and I was zooming in too much to one area, where physics helps you to step back, see the forest for the trees, and really trim the most important elements of a system and make it very simplified.
Right. Yeah. And
anyway.
No, and I would say the other skill that you gain is being able to take on, like, I guess the discovery from, you look at the biggest discoveries in physics, they're typically brought on by some new frame of thinking, and or new paradigm of thinking. And like, physics, what's appealing about it to me at least is that you do get these paradigm shifts, and they force you to grow in some sense, right?
Yeah.
To evolve.
You will never stop learning in physics.
Yeah, exactly.
You're always able to learn new shit.
Exactly. If you're going in a field and you're like, fuck, I feel like this is gonna be boring once
It's
I figure
never
it
boring.
out. Physics is never. I'm being 100%
Yeah,
serious.
you
Physics is
literally
never-
always have something new to learn.
Yeah.
If you always like to learn new stuff,
Physics
is
perfect.
for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
physics is for you. And yeah, like I mean, like you get new ways of thinking. Like you have Einstein's theory of relativity.
Right.
Things that we can't explain, we find explanations of. We're constantly refining our thinking.
And the nice thing about physics also is it's not just cleanup learning either, because sometimes when you get into really far into a field, sometimes it feels like you're just, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, right?
Yeah.
With physics, you can still get major leaps, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember like going from, at least for me, I guess now, I'm not sure if that always carries through. I imagine maybe it does. But yeah, I just remember, I guess it probably does, because if we're stuck at a point, that means that the things that you've been doing don't work. So you need a big shift in thinking. But I remember, in some fields like music, for example, sometimes I feel like I'm just dotting my I's and crossing my T's when I'm like, just learning to do my form. It's like you're just perfecting what you already know.
Yeah.
But with physics, it feels like, I'm learning like, now I'm thinking relativistically now. Now I'm learning a whole new regime of quantum mechanics. Like, it's like such huge changes in your perception of thinking that you get these massive returns on investment when you're learning new things.
Yeah. And I think for me, the big takeaway for why you should do it, I think, is if you want to be the kind of person that is able to, like, you find the things around you, you want to explain the world that you live in. Yeah. That's like the biggest one. Yeah. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. And it makes me feel like a sorcerer, because I literally feel like you just know shit. You know how the universe works at such a level.
Yeah.
It's like, isn't that what we all dream of as adults or as kids, right? We're like, adults are so smart. They just understand the world so well.
Yeah.
And then you grow up and realize, adults are fucking idiots. They don't know. They don't know shit. So it's like, do a service to kid you, and be as badass as you think you should be. And like a kid can ask me some random shit. Kids love to play the why question. Why? Now a kid can ask me like, why do the clouds exist? And I can have an answer for them, Why is the sky blue? And I have an answer,
Yeah.
So it's like, be that badass that your kid self wanted to be.
Yeah.
Physicists will allow you to do that.
Yeah, you could literally explain. I did that with my nephew as an exercise. But try not to be a buzzkill. Like sometimes we can be buzzkillingtons. Like, so
right, you're gonna die, son.
Yeah, it's a fine.
The whole universe is gonna die soon.
It's a fine line. I will say, like, I will point to famously Neil deGrasse Tyson. He always gets in trouble for this. As
I think it was just once.
Well, he points to, like, for instance, like movies, just like more famously, like if you look at something like Star Wars. You're not supposed to have sound in space, so you wouldn't even hear explosions.
I see.
You wouldn't hear.
He's a well-actually.
Yeah, he's being well-actually guy.
Yeah.
And we do, as physicists, you do have this like sense of like, well, actually, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're concerned with building an accurate picture of reality, then that is, then do physics, because it'll help you refine that. But just be prepared for the math, and be prepared for people to not like you when you refine their thinking, I guess. Right. So
you're doing them a service, though. Don't worry.
Yeah. No, but I say that is the biggest plus for me. Being able to explain a lot of things in the room. Like I can explain why the light is emitted this way. Just the other day I got asked, why does light emanate in all directions? And
it's an interesting question.
I was like, wow, this is a very interesting question. I don't want to pause the show to answer, because this is a very long-winded question. Because I was going to differentiate between like the types, like there's coherent light, and then there's like basically like, light does radiate in all ways, and they're like, how do you have pointed light, essentially?
Like a laser.
Polarize, And so there's so, like, I could answer those questions. Like, and it's just it's
not like you need Wikipedia. Well, sometimes you might.
As a reference, but
it depends how deep you're going. But sometimes you can answer some of these cool, something that you might not be able.
Metaphysical
Yeah, like crazy questions that you won't even need Wikipedia because you can just derive it from what you know already.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I could tell you how LEDs work. How does that TV work? How does it, like you could answer these questions about the things around you. How.
Right. And the real separator is it's not just because you have memorized a bunch of stuff. Like I can answer new questions that I never thought of.
Exactly.
Because I have the utilities and the know-how of how the universe works, which is really the separator, I think. Because you can have experts who can answer questions, but they just know a lot from reading, right?
Yeah.
I can answer things that I've never even thought of before because I just know how the universe works, so I can put two and two together and say, oh, I know how this works because of this, and that means that this is going to do this.
Yeah, this should happen.
It's a horrible explanation, but
but you're saying like because of all you have sort of your priors of knowledge.
Yeah.
You're like things should behave in this manner.
Right. If I really need to, I can get down to the math.
Yeah.
Solve an equation and figure out this is how it is going to do it because this is what it came up with from the math. So I know what's going to happen now.
Yep. Yeah, and the other skill, why you should do physics, I would say. Yeah, we said scientific literacy, but how about math literacy?
True. Which I would chalk up to almost the same thing because you ain't doing science really, at least not physics without math. So, they're inextricably tied together.
Yeah, but you do, and that is massive. Like you will gain. It'll open doors in the sense that you know how to work with data, you know how to model data. You become somebody who's like not afraid of using math.
Physics is just real life math.
Yeah.
Math is like
it's a language.
Math is like physics is real life math. The field of math is like any math. It's like Wild West math. Like anything goes in that world.
Yeah.
In physics, you're constrained to a small subset of real math.
That's real life. And then the real math,
or the art of doing math as a major, that's like you can go all over the place with that. So,
and if you're more, and here's a distinction too between math and physics. If you're more interested in like why math follows the rules that it does, you're more interested in being a mathematician. Like if you're like if you're like
that's an interesting thing. So how would you distinguish between if you want to be a mathematician or a physicist?
Yeah. Why? What?
I was saying that's an interesting thing that you just hit on is what maybe for some people they might think, should I be a mathematician or should I be a physicist? Yeah. So what would you say to that?
No, I mean just the distinction between the two is if you're more interested in how numbers work in the sense like how the rules are made up to like why do even numbers multiplying an even number by an even number give you an even number? What is this property that is embedded in it or endued to it? Is that the word?
Say again.
Endued? Indebted?
Endowed?
Endowed? No, I don't
I'm
think
not sure what you're trying to
do.
do.
Whatever.
Imbued?
Say that again.
Imbued?
There you go. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah.
It's given to that. What gives it that property in a sense? Like you're more interested in answering mathematical questions.
Yeah, I guess if you're trying to guess if you want to be in math or physics, maybe with mathematicians, you're not so concerned with how the real world works, let's say. Mathematicians are more concerned with like they love to just play with the patterns. May not necessarily care if the patterns do anything. It's like you just want to build worlds based on logic.
Yeah.
With physics, it's more of, do you want to actually solve real problems? Do you want to have application in real life? Even a theoretical physicist, you're still thinking about the real universe, right? So you can't use things that don't actually have, they have to at least have the possibility to exist. So math is more like free reign. Do whatever the fuck you want to do as long as it logically adds up. Physics is like, okay, you can do a lot of shit, but it's got to at least have some bearing in the real universe.
Yeah, and remember, science is something that has a testable hypothesis that can be falsifiable.
Yeah.
And mathematics is not preoccupied with falsifiability. Like
they're concerned with falsifiability.
I mean, they're concerned with proving and disproving.
Yes, which is falsifiably logical, or it's a logical falsifiability, right?
Yeah.
If your math is illogical, then you're then you have no framework,
okay,
right?
Yeah, that is a good distinction. Yeah. It's an
empirical is really the distinction.
Empirical is really the distinction. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of like.
But even in physics, you don't have to necessarily be empirical yet. But ultimately, you want your theory to yield empirical results if possible.
Yeah.
This is the flack that string theorists get, because string theorists are basically like glorified mathematicians, people will say, because nothing that they produce really has any empirical evidence. So it all matches, a bunch of it matches with real life universe stuff, but it needs more empirical backing, which is why it gets criticism.
Yeah.
So physicists try to distinguish themselves from mathematicians with that empirical part in mind.
Yes.
What's our time so we know?
We're supposed to rag on physics at some point.
Yeah, we're supposed to rag. No, but yeah, I think just to kind of recap why you should do physics, scientific literacy, of course, mathematical literacy.
Yeah.
That'll give you some good job prospects for sure.
Yep.
And what else did I say?
Become a sorcerer.
It'll humble you. You'll be good at teaching yourself.
Right.
And you'll never be bored.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Is that kind of all of them? I think so.
I think that sums it up.
Yeah.
Good
is
work.
there anything else you want to
Remember
add,
that.
do you think? Like why somebody, like if you were telling yourself, your younger self, why should you do physics? Oh, and then explaining, I guess, being able to explain a lot of what you see. That was the other one.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I think that pretty much covers most of the important stuff.
Okay. So let's get down
dun,
to the
dun,
why
dun.
you shouldn't. Why you shouldn't. So why, Terence? Why shouldn't somebody do physics?
Oof. So the only thing I would say that maybe someone not to do physics, if we're talking in context of academia, which isn't
Of
really
course, like
so much of
you-
a knock on physics, but the thing is you can still do physics as a layman, right? But
yeah.
I would just go with my biggest qualm with the physics world is the fact of
to be a legitimate physicist,
institutions.
Yeah. Well, if you want to be a legitimized physicist, you do need certifications.
Yes. Like if you want to be a practicing physicist, let's say, like working in, as a professor or something, then you need to have the certificates
And all the bullshitty
Or
stuff.
working at a lab.
unless you can solve millennial problem or something in your basement, then you can maybe become a professor without all the
Which is another way
routes.
of certifying yourself, but anyway.
Yeah. But it's the more I guess it's the more or less it's the way you can have your cake and eat it too.
Right, exactly.
So the thing is though, with physics, if you want to become an academic, you're going to have to deal with all the academic bullshit that surrounds it, which is quite numerous. So it's endless barriers, endless hoops to jump over, poor health because you're going to have to be, doing so much dumb shit.
Let's elaborate on the quote unquote dumb shit because that is kind of like my thing of why maybe you shouldn't do physics. It's all in the context of the institutional structures. Like you should do physics for all the things that we said, but a lot of, like Terence is saying, the biggest setbacks or the biggest barriers are the institutional structures that as physicists you have to face.
Which is mostly a knock on institutions. And unfortunately in life, especially for our youngsters watching, I'm sorry to break it to you guys, but pretty much institutions always suck, and they will always suck. The best way to get into an institution is to catch it when it's early in its institutional structure.
Yeah.
When an institution's gone for too long, then it starts to really get fucking
you
bad.
have things like
People always manage to fuck it up and make shit worse, and they become watered down for the masses. It sucks.
Well, the issue is also you get power creep. The level of difficulty increases with every passing generation.
Right.
So
the expectations become more unrealistic.
Right.
There's more arbitrary BS you have to do, like filling out forms and answering emails and doing tests and like.
Yeah.
It's all these institutions that really make things shitty.
Yeah, but to give you some actual like physical things, I would say you shouldn't do physics because it will probably impact your mental health. Number one.
It could. I wouldn't say probably. Probably is too strong.
Okay, well, I will say it could impact your mental health.
Yeah.
And the way I say it is because I've seen it happen to a lot of people in my undergraduate experience and graduate
physicists be
experience.
going crazy, man, for some reason. Why do you think that is?
Because of the structure of how it's made to be.
Yeah, but is that the institution or is that the physics?
I think that's the institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you said to give a physical example though. So I want to make it clear to the audience. I don't think people are going crazy because of the physics.
No.
I think it's just from the rigor of the institutions.
Exactly.
Like it puts you in states where you're working all night. It could potentially, right?
Yeah,
It could
yeah.
potentially put you in a place where you're working all night. It puts you in a land of eating unhealthy because you're solving problems all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
Stress.
stress. Like, but this is any kind of really high level pursuit, I guess.
Yeah.
So just take
But
it
it's
for
a-
what it is.
But
It's like
but the culture is especially damaging, I would say.
yeah, because they really like to reinforce it in physics. They make it like this is the state that you ascribe to be in.
Yeah. I've heard that it's definitely a feature of the thing, not a. It's not a.
In some sense,
it's
it
not
is.
It's not a foresight. It's not like, oh, this is a blind spot for us.
Yeah.
It's
They like this.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the movie Whiplash, this will give you an example of what it's like.
100%. Well, that's exactly.
It's like basically a masochistic mindset.
Yeah. Professors wish they could do that. I think
Yeah.
I really do believe that this is. I mean, not to say I have had some wonderful professors, like, sprinkled in my
Sure.
my career as a student, but
Yeah.
But for the most part, a lot of professors have this, and we've talked about this numerous times, but a lot of this pain mentality, and the institutions thrive on putting you through that rigor, and the way they see it is that is how you produce quality.
Yeah.
It's a quality control measure,
Yeah.
and you need to really get through it. If you really want to be a physicist, like, you have to put up with that, and
Right.
Unfortunately, you're not going to change the institutions
Yeah.
in the span of your lifetime.
Yeah. You can change it by being a good professor if you get through it. but
Exactly. Yeah.
You're not going to change it as a lowly grad student. You're chopped liver. Nobody gives a fuck about you.
Yeah. You first, unfortunately, you need to have some legitimacy to be able to change things, and you can reform the system from within, but you need to be in the system. Like, I don't think change can happen from the outside, but there's a lot of mobilization, and unfortunately, it's a huge task to take that on. And so I would say don't add any stress. You don't want to be a martyr.
Yeah.
If you really want to do physics and you love doing it, stick to doing that. But
Just get through it and then be the change that you seek to see.
yeah. But yeah, I'm saying you can. I've seen students like dip into depression, anxiety, eating disorders,
Yep.
sleep deprivation. I mean, like, just
Even
sleep
the
disorders.
real bad one is suicide.
Oh yeah,
you know.
yeah. I mean,
It happens,
elephant in the
unfortunately.
room, yeah,
Yeah.
Like that happens.
But we won't make this too dark of an episode.
Yeah,
but
we won't. But
hopefully you guys won't have to experience any of that.
yeah, and if you do, go to your fucking counseling center. Like,
Yeah,
if
there are counselors, and of
Yeah.
course, at the end of the day, guys,
It's
it ain't
physics.
worth it, man. Just leave if it's that bad.
Yeah, if you-
I left the graduate school program
Yeah.
because I didn't like it.
Yeah.
There are options. You don't
Yeah.
have to kill yourself. I mean, I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but it's like life goes on, guys. There's
Yeah.
many other things you can do in life.
I would say if you're dealing with, if your identity is so tied to being a physicist, you need to trust that the institutions don't give you legitimacy in doing what you like. You like physics. You like doing physics. Do
100%.
physics. Do
100%
physics.
one.
Yeah.
Don't rely on the institutions to tell you you're a physicist or not.
Yeah. Yeah. If
Just
you're
give them a middle finger and say, fuck you. I'm a physicist whether you want me to be or not.
Like, start a YouTube channel. Maybe you could solve problems on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many things you can do to, like, be recognized as a physicist, and even
Mm-hmm.
be a part of a research group, a team. You just contribute,
100%, guys.
So-
You do what you love,
Yeah.
despite what anybody says. Doesn't matter what they say.
You can do it. And yeah, so with that being said, I guess, like, the other thing is, like, besides the mental health is also the time.
Yeah.
The time is the biggest, I would say, thing that I would tell people why they shouldn't do physics.
Yeah. Right, and that's because you're saying, Juan, is because it just is so time consuming, right? You know, but this is, of course, once the graduate school level hits, if you're in that ballpark, I think you pretty much foregone any kind of free time anyway, despite anything you want to do. So,
Resigned, yeah.
if you're doing graduate school, you're just fucked in either way. So don't worry on that front. If you're going that high in education, you already are signing up for no life anyway.
You've accepted your fate.
But at least in undergraduate, it's a little sad because I know, for me, I at least didn't really experience this that much because I was already a non-traditional kind of student.
Yeah.
You know, I was restarting my career, let's say, at like 22. That's still young as fuck, don't get me wrong.
As a physics student?
Yeah, but I was already in college for like 3 or 4 years before that. So I got my college experience.
I partied my balls off while I was in school as an undergraduate, right?
Yeah.
For years. And then I was like, maybe I'll start taking this seriously.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, for some of my contemporaries who were younger than me at the time, you know, when I was starting to get really deep into physics, you know, 23, 24, and these guys, you know, they never really got to have the real college experience. And they're looking out the window all sad with a tear in their eye because, you know, the other kids are having fun. The business majors and the, you know, liberal arts majors are having fun, going to parties and doing shit. And these guys are basically having to study all day.
Yeah, having segs.
Having segs. No segs was to be had in the physics department.
I'm telling you, no. It's like your sex life gone. Like you don't have time, you don't have the energy, you don't have the
It's just a luxury you can't afford, really.
Unfortunately.
And also, if you want to get ahead in physics, because you know how competitive it is.
Yeah.
Like, your time is going to be spent ideally doing like research on the side, doing extracurriculars on the side. So for me, you know, I didn't give a fuck because I was like, you know, I was taken care of.
Yeah.
I had my youthful time.
Yeah.
So, but if you haven't experienced that, you can get a little bit of FOMO, which is fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So, you know, if that's a deal breaker for you guys, I say, for me, honestly, personally, I say be young first. You only get one chance to be young, so fucking live your life. You know,
I would say
just go fucking hog wild if you can.
And I'm going to co-sign that because I definitely feel like I'm out of my student career pretty much, and I feel like coming out of it the other side, I look at my youth and I'm like, and that was one huge insecurity I had while I was in school. I was like, man, I don't want to have my head in the books my whole 20s. Like my youth is spent poring over pages of whatever. And that's how a lot of the culture and the academic institutions is like, you know, you're either about it or you're not. You know what I'm saying? It's like sort of, I had a professor say this legitimately, you're a monk. You basically give everything up to do this.
Yep, you're a monk.
And
sometimes you can do it, but
no, you
it's
can,
hard.
but it will take more time. Like you'll probably, if you do it your way, you will probably take a lot more time, and that's the non-traditional route, I would say.
Some people I'm sure have been able to do it, so don't listen to us fully.
I mean, we have been able. I mean, you and I have been able to do it. Like we've done it in a non-traditional way.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But you know, guys, it's just like, you just gotta be cognizant that you will be spending more time, for guaranteed, than probably the people around you.
Yes.
You can't bullshit knowing physics or math.
Yeah.
You can bullshit persuasive essays.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't translate the same way.
And I can tell you why. And the distinction, some people might be asking, well, why the hell is that? What makes it so different? What makes it different is the fact that physics is a science and mathematics. Like typically you don't have a major that's so preoccupied with both.
Yeah.
You basically have to learn math and science in one degree. And so you spent a lot of your time learning the mathematic techniques, and then the other chunk of the time learning physics. And
how to apply that math, how it fits with the models, doing different scenarios. That it's like once you got one part, now you got to go with the other part. So it's like the time consumption is real.
Yeah, and most majors, and just to make it more clear, most majors you only deal with one thing. You only deal with this, like you only learn the science. They'll teach you the math like here and there, if you need it.
Like biology or something, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Or even in chemistry, like you might have to do partial differential equations in chemistry, but most professors it won't be as rigorous as like learning all the linear algebra or whatever.
Right, and it'll be just for this particular technique or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
So yeah, that's kind of what makes physics, quote unquote, more time consuming or difficult in that way. But do you think there's anything else like why you shouldn't?
Why you shouldn't?
So we're saying time. We just said time, and then the other one is mental health. It might impact your mental health if you.
Yeah. I think you probably nailed them. If you don't want to be a fucking nerd.
Yeah. Number 3, if you don't want to be a huge ass nerd.
Anytime a girl asks me what you do, I'm like, I'm a student, or I was a grad student.
Yeah, I told them I'm an engineer. Yeah. I literally say anybody who asks me, I'm just like, I'm an engineer. If you want, don't do physics if you want to be confused and explaining what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or people just like, ooh, or the next line is, oh, I sucked at physics. Oh, I hate physics.
Yeah. And you always get the same dialogue. I guess it's like being an Uber driver. You just repeat the same
or you're just, wow, you must be so smart.
Yeah. It's like, no.
It's like, no, I'm an idiot. I'm sorry.
No, but I guess in all seriousness, I wouldn't say, I don't know, just I don't know. I guess that's maybe the 2 most important ones, because I'm thinking about the friends that I've made along the way, and why you shouldn't do physics. Let me think. All the problems that I've ever encountered were usually one of those 2 things.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, because the time thing also bleeds into work-life balance. There's no work-life balance. There's no time for yourself. Usually, in undergrad, I was able to do it. It's real tough. It's possible. Like I will say that it is possible, but if you're looking to have a balanced life,
it'll be a struggle.
It'll be a struggle. I went through semesters where I had, for me, 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and it was a disaster, I will say.
See, I always got sleep.
Yeah.
But I never had time.
Yeah. So you're giving up. You're making concessions for things.
But also maybe because I also didn't have a social life.
That's true.
Yeah.
I definitely
forgave a social life so I can have sleep. I was like, fuck social life. I'm just gonna have sleep.
No, and So like, if you want to have relationships, it's a lot harder. And it puts stress on all those things. And so
definitely not a girlfriend.
Yeah,
sorry guys, but that's real brutal. It can be done, but it's tough.
You can have partners during school, but it is tough. There's a lot of time to put into school, unfortunately.
Unless your partner's real independent and they're really forgiving, especially maybe if they're both physicists, then it's a little better.
I've seen that as a successful relationship.
Same here, when they're both physicists, because they're both doing stuff together still and doing homework together.
Yeah.
So that might
work. They
work.
both understand like the stress and like what goes into the demands.
Yes.
There's a lot of that's how I've seen couples work through doing like physics together.
Right. It's like someone you could commiserate with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that could work.
Yeah. Let me think what else. You shouldn't do physics because the job prospects are also not as great as everyone thinks.
Yeah, that's a good one to bring up. I forgot about that. Yeah. It's like you don't, but this day and age, it's like any job you're doing, the return on investment is not that great. You know, it's like college is kind of overrated now. Yeah. The job market's oversaturated. Yeah. Employers are just so picky and choosy. They want all these people with crazy credentials. Yeah. And then they pay you shit wages. They want you to know
how to do backflips and also know how to code in 10 different languages.
Yeah, they want you to code 10 different languages, 8 years of experience, and then sign up for this internship.
Yeah. They also want you to know how to be certified in truck lifter or whatever the fuck. Forklift certified person. What?
With security clearance.
Dude.
It's so dumb. The job market is really stupid, guys. You'll see.
Yeah. And don't go into. You shouldn't do physics for the money. I've seen people think physics is a cash cow.
Really? Who thinks that?
Bro, trust me. I've seen. Okay, so I think there's a mentality here. Sometimes there's some bleeding over, and I would say, so there are some finance bros who aren't as afraid to do math that end up that realize that money can be made in a lot more how would you say stable ways.
Okay, maybe.
So they go into engineering and then they maybe do electrical engineering. So some of them the finance bros that love science, they bounce all the way to physics.
Oh.
And I've seen this.
That's dumb.
So you shouldn't do physics if you are really concerned with making money. Physics is not.
Yeah, it's not about the money. The amount of effort you have to put in for the return on your investment, actually monetarily, is way skewed.
100%.
Like it's not even worth it, even close at all.
Don't do it. Be an actuary.
Be an engineer. Engineers at least is better if you want to still do physics and make money and have a decent life.
Exactly.
Like engineers probably like the engineers kind of the hack to get pretty much best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Physicists and then like mathematician, they don't make shit either.
Yeah. Because physics is too on the. It's too weird for the normies and then too normies for the weird. So it's like it's not even the best of both worlds. It's just like you're not mathematical enough for the real rigorous job training stuff, and then you're too sciencey for a lot of the engineering jobs, essentially.
But you can do them.
You can do them.
You can transfer to engineering as a physicist. It's just that if you want to have better odds and also have better connections, probably with networking, engineering is the way to go.
Yeah, specifically electrical engineering. If you're a physicist who's like, man, okay, shit, I got like, let's say you're a junior watching this, or somebody who's been doing physics for a couple of years, and you're like, man, maybe I shouldn't have done physics.
Yeah,
there's still time.
Sometimes I wish I was an engineer.
You can, me too. Sometimes you can switch. You can switch over to electrical engineering. Electrical engineering is actually. You still incorporate a lot more physics than traditional quote unquote engineers like civil engineers don't go to civil engineering. That's like you're basically on a construction site doing stuff like that. You don't want to.
It could be cool though if you like that kind of.
That's true.
Working with building modelings and stuff.
Yeah, but if you're more of person who likes to build things electronically or whatever, if you're more of a projects oriented person, electrical engineering is good because then you can also apply physics, Maxwell's equations and quantum mechanics. There's so much to do in electrical engineering that applies modern physics. So and that pays well. So if you're doing
has work-life balance potentially.
Yes, for sure.
You can work up maybe 40-hour work week in engineering and get paid, $90K and live a decent life.
Yeah.
Maybe you'd have a wife.
And if that sounds appealing to you, then don't do physics because you're not gonna have that.
You could, but it's like it's hard. It's making it harder for the sake of do I want more knowledge? And as a kid, you might be like, I want all the fucking knowledge. I want all this shit. I mean, that was me.
Me too. Yeah.
And then you trick yourself and be like, oh, shit, maybe I didn't need all that knowledge. Maybe I needed
what I do with all this knowledge.
But guys, just do what you want to do at the end of the day. It's all good. You'll figure out a path.
Yeah.
Me and Juan are hanging in. We're good. So
if you love physics, do it. I'm saying you shouldn't do physics because of the money, because of this stuff. Like, do it because you love it, because you like this, and, you'll never be bored of it, I guess. So, like, I would say... The last thing is don't do physics if you want to be a professor.
Isn't that kind of like
it's kind of hard,
oxymoronic?
It kind of is oxymoronic, but don't the student to professor pipeline.
Oh, it's real fucking tight.
It's a really tight.
It's like really small.
Please set your standards to hyper realism, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, like if you want to be a professor, basically sign on being Einstein.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you don't feel as good as Einstein, then
okay, we're hyping it up a little bit much, but I would say like.
But at least if you want to try to have a ghost of a chance of making it, like that needs to be your mindset.
I've met a lot of like you can definitely work your way up to a professorship, but do not be married with the idea of like. If you set all your value on like I'm going to become a professor,
you're going to be disappointed in life.
You're going to be very disappointed. The prospects of these positions, like they're so competitive, and tenure is so. I've seen it tear people like up because like even good professors like just not get accepted, and it's rough.
But the real hack is you really just got to know somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any hack in life to getting the job you want, guys, this is the truest hack ever. So if you're a meritocracy based person, undo that shit and start learning how to fucking be a goddamn schmoozer, okay? Because the people who you know in life are going to get you the shit that you want.
Yeah.
No fucking people. No people at high levels.
Yeah.
Go to conferences, talk to a lot of people.
Make
guys,
friends.
I'm telling you, that is the hack.
Yeah.
If you don't know people, you're just doing yourself away so much of a disservice because merit doesn't get you that far.
And the way you can do this is, I would say, in terms of actionables, like things you can do right now. I would say if you're a student and you're like, man, how do I become a professor? Well, I would say the real life examples that I've seen is, like Terence is saying, somebody who's networked really hard, but in the way that is tied to their research. So this particular person that I have in mind that I'm using as a sort of success story, they produce a lot of good samples, and they were really good at this particular technique, and so they became pretty well known.
The go-to for that.
Yeah, pretty well known in the community, and so they collaborated frequently, and so they were well liked. You know what I mean? And so in the span of after they got their PhD, they did a good postdoc, and then after that postdoc, they pretty much got offered a position, and so
there you go.
They will come to you. Like it will come to you if you do bust your ass trying to network and collaborating, working with people. Like that is really the thing you have to do. If you see yourself as a lone wolf who's like, I'm gonna
don't do that.
Don't do that. You're and you want a professorship, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't try to be like a Grigori Perelman, like he's a once in a fucking blue moon guy. It's the guy who did the Poincare conjecture, lived with his mom, never talked to anyone or collaborated.
Right.
It's like, I guess if that's what you want to do it. I mean, by all means,
but
I say,
you will die a martyr.
Yeah, your odds of being successful are extremely low.
Yeah. So I think that's it. I think I don't know. Is there anything else that you think you might have glossed over or missed?
Bro, I think that about covers it, man.
Cool. Well, folks, any questions for the listeners, you think?
I guess let's say, I guess just questions of what do you guys think might be some more questions that you had of if you should be a physicist or not, or should go into physics.
Yeah, actually, we'll pin some of the good ones, like why you shouldn't do physics.
Yeah. Or if you have any other comments regarding that.
Yeah, or why you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll pin them up. But yeah, please like, comment, share, subscribe. If you if you want to hear more about us and just kind of us just talking, more bullshitting.
I guess people have been asking us about more of a personal side of us, and we do all that on our Patreon. So little incentive for you to shoot $1 to your boys if you want.
And shout out to all of our current patrons. You are all wonderful people.
Yes, thank you guys.
Y'all do amazing commenting, and we also take I guess ideas there from the listeners.
Yeah.
And but yeah, if you want to contribute more to the show, you can do that through our Patreon. Make sure to check that out. And
help Juan eat for a day.
Feed me for one day.
The boy needs some nutrition.
I will promise that I will not splurge if you feed me for a day. But yeah, anyway, do that and
check out the websites, Eigenbros.com, Eigenbros on Twitter, Eigenbros Instagram, Eigenbros 2 on TikTok. I think that's it, right, Juan?
See you later, yeah.
See you guys.
Peace.